I'm turning 34 this month, and over the years, I've learned my fair share of lessons. Some the easy way, some the hard way. When I was in my 20s, I did a lot of stupid stuff. And that's okay. Your 20s are a decade of decision. It's a time to figure things out. But even so, I could have saved myself a lot of headache and a lot of heartache if I could have had a conversation with the 33-year-old self of today. So if I could share a few words with my younger self or anyone in their 20s, this is what I would say. Let's go ahead and jump in. Number one, no one cares as much as you think. You know, in your 20s, you worry a lot about what others think, your failures, your successes. You think about how you look on social media. You think everyone's analyzing the decisions you make. But in reality, most people are too busy thinking about themselves to be thinking about you. So even though we may think that people are judging us left and right or thinking about all the things that we do, the reality is they probably aren't. I know when I was in my 20s, I cared a lot about what people thought. I tried to appear a certain way in front of others, especially in my early 20s. And I put pressure on myself to be something I wasn't, to be things that I thought I was supposed to be or that other people wanted me to be. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth it. And it took me time to figure out that it's okay for me to be who I am, do what I want to do, not care what others think, and just make the decisions that I want to make for my own sake. So take that pressure off of yourself and just start thinking about what you want to do, making the decisions you want to make, going in the direction you want to go, being who you are, and letting other people feel and experience the weight of who you are unapologetically. All right, number two, take care of your money. Now, a lot of us, when we're young, we start getting a regular paycheck, we make some money, and we just start spending it. I know early on when I was working, I thought it was really exciting to be making money, and I would just spend it all right away. Or eventually I started getting into the habit of using credit cards and just thinking like, just pay it off. But then the debt would accumulate faster than the money I was making. And eventually I had to learn to budget. So it really is true that if you learn early on some smart money habits, things like saving, living off less than you make, it really does set you up with a better future. It builds good habits, but it also helps you get ahead. Start investing in your retirement fund early. That compounds over time. And if you start investing even just a few hundred a month in your 20s, you'll be way better off when it's time to retire than you will be if you just started investing in your 30s. So it's okay to be excited about the money you make, especially when you get your first big boy or big girl job, but be wise with that money. Don't spend it all every paycheck. Learn how to take care of your money and put some aside. Do smart things with it. Number three, your first job won't define your whole career. Now, most of us, when we're in college or even when we're in high school, we are hyper fixated on what we're going to be doing for the rest of our life. We think that whatever we major in or whatever field we go into fresh out of college will define the rest of our career, and there's a lot of pressure in that decision. The reality is that you have time to figure it out. I graduated with an English degree, went into teaching, then went into education administration, then went into B2B sales, then went into billing and operations and kind of worked up the ladder there, ended up in data analytics, and then eventually into product management. And even though there was a lot of changes there, all of it was an upward trajectory. When I went from sales into billing, I did take a slight step back, but within a couple years, I was making as much as I made in sales. And today, I'm making more than I've ever made before. So even though I didn't stay in the career path that I started in when I exited college, I was able to kind of take a non-linear path to some really cool jobs, and even today doing something that I really love. And I talk to people all the time who pivot careers. So don't think that the first thing you do is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Your first job won't define your entire career. You're allowed to pivot, you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to figure things out. What I say is just move in the direction of what interests you. And if you get into something and you find that it's really not your passion after all and you don't like it, it's okay to try something new. It might be scary, it might require a temporary step back, but in my case, whenever I've made a pivot, it's worked in my favor. So don't stress yourself out, just try things out. Number four, taking risks young is the best time. It's way easier to fail and recover in your 20s than it is later in life. So again, today I'm 33 at the time of recording this video. I'm married, I have 2 kids, I have a bunch of pets, and I have a lot more responsibility and obligation today than I did in my 20s. And don't get me wrong, I love everything about all those obligations and responsibilities. I love my life. But it is a fact that making big decisions today carries a little bit more risk. Doesn't mean I can't make those decisions, but they do carry more risk. But when you're young and in your 20s, you have time to try things out. And if they don't work out, you carry minimal risk and you can get back on your feet a lot easier. You know, there's things back then that I wish I had done that I can't necessarily do today. Like at one point I wanted to convert my truck into like a a van and just live out of my truck. And I wanted to save like a ton of money doing that. And I never ended up doing it because I was kind of too afraid to. But looking back, I do kind of wish I had tried that because, I do think I would have saved a lot of money, which going back to point 2 could have set me up even better for my future. That's a small example, but you get what I mean. So like if you want to move to another country, or you do want to try a new job, or you want to start a business or something like that, it's so much easier to do that in your 20s before you have a family and a lot more responsibility, because you can fail fast and recover quickly. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's how you learn, but it's also how you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Number 5, last one, stop comparing yourself to others. Now, I feel like this is a challenge for anyone at any stage of life. In fact, it's still a challenge for me, but especially in your 20s when life is maybe a little bit more social, right? College is a very social time, or when you enter the workforce as a young professional and you're trying to make friends and things like that, it's a lot easier to compare your journey to others. You look at social media and you see all the highlights. You see that friend who's going on another 2-week vacation to some other country for like the 4th time this year, and you're like, how do they afford that? Or, the friend of yours who is in the Forbes 30 under 30, or they're making a ton of money, or whatever. You know what I mean? You see all the highlights when you scroll social media. But the fact of the matter is, everyone's social media is their highlight reel. And you typically only see the best sides of people's life on social media. You don't see the failures. You don't see the tough things that they're going through. You don't see how hard their lives actually are. And you don't see that in reality, everyone is just figuring it out as they go. So when I was in my 20s, I would get deeply insecure when I would scroll social media. I had periods where I wasn't really stoked about where I was at in life, and I would see my friends were getting married or doing cool stuff like I mentioned before, and I would just get really bummed out and depressed about it. And so what I did that really worked out for me is I just quit using social media for a period. I stayed off of all social media for like several years. And that was really scary at first because you think you're gonna have like no social life, you're not gonna know what's going on in anyone's lives anymore, and your entire world is going to collapse because no one sees what you're doing. You're going to like cease to exist in people's minds and memories. Now, to a certain degree, you are going to be kind of out of the loop of what your friend from middle school is up to today or whatever, but who cares? The trade-off of not knowing what everyone is up to, or everyone not knowing what you're up to the stress that you save yourself from not scrolling social media all the time is totally worth it. For me, it resulted in mental health wins, a more positive outlook. I was able to just kind of like hone in on what I was doing, and it was a great time of self-discovery for me. And I spent like several years off of all social media. And then for a brief period, I went back to like Facebook and Instagram, and then I even quit using those, and it's been almost 5 years since I've even logged into my Instagram and Facebook account. I obviously still use like LinkedIn and YouTube for my business. So today I do use social media again. I use LinkedIn, Substack, and YouTube, but I have a very different intention with it because I create content. But LinkedIn especially has also become a place of networking for me. So my intention with social media is different than it used to be. Before, it used to be all social, like on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And now I'm just a little bit more focused with my social media usage. Not saying you have to take a social media fast. Absolutely recommend it if you want to try it. But the point here is to just work on not comparing yourself to others. If you're anything like me, it'll really bum you out. And just try to focus on what you're doing and the people directly around you and in your life, and learn from others rather than compare yourself to others. And that's it. That's 5 things I would share with my younger self, my 20-something year old self, if I could go back in time and have a chat with them. So if you're in your 20s, I hope this was helpful for you. Hope you were able to learn a little bit from my experiences or the things I shared. If not, that's cool too. Thank you for watching. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.